I don't know why. Polka dots just seem like the appropriate attire for discussing Jacqueline Wilson. Hi, welcome. Come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am going to talk to you about my 5 favourite books by Queen of British Children's Literature, Jacqueline Wilson. This week is the Wilsathon, where I and a couple of other booktubers are hosting a readathon based around Jacqueline Wilson. We have a couple of prompts that you can fill out. We have a couple of challenges that you can do. But we're all going to try and take a look back at what some of our Jacqueline Wilson highlights have been, and I could not narrow it down from these 5. There is one historical book on this, but the majority of the Jacqueline Wilson books that I have loved have all been kind of the contemporary ones that focus on kind of like family drama. When I was younger, my dad used to order books from a site called The Book People quite a lot. We got a magazine like every 3 or 4 months into the house, and then you would just order something that you wanted as like a birthday present or a Christmas present or whatever. And I had my bookshelf absolutely filled with Jacqueline Wilson books. And then as I got older, when I had kind of grown out of the Jacqueline Wilson books, I gave them to my dad, who was a teacher, and he brought them into the library in his school. So they always had good homes with me. These books are in absolutely no particular order, but they are just the 5 books of Jacqueline Wilson's that have stuck with me for such a long time, and they're the ones that I would absolutely reread in a heartbeat right now. First on the list is The Bed and Breakfast Star, and this one follows Elsa, who is I think like 9 or 10 or so. One of Elsa's big things is that she has hair that she describes kind of like a lion's mane. It's very curly, it stands out quite a lot, and it's, I think, the same colour as a lion's mane. She definitely has it on the cover as the same colour as a lion's mane. For quite a lot of her life, Elsa lived in a single parent family, but her mother has actually met somebody new called Mac from Scotland. Her mother and Mac get married, and they have 2 other children. They have a boy called Hank, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the girl's name is, but she's Elsa's younger half-sister. Editing Aoife here, I remember her name, it's Pippa. When Mac loses his job, the family is made homeless, and they moved into a hotel in the area to kind of get back on their feet and to kind of like rebuild their lives. Elsa really wants to be a comedian, and she spends quite a lot of the book telling jokes and just cracking up about the situations that they're going through, kind of trying to lighten the mood a little bit. At the end of the book, there is a fire in the hotel, and while Elsa is kind of like the center of attention in one part, she absolutely just shuts down. And I think that was a really good portrayal of how kids have these ideas of, I want to be an actress, I want to be a pop star, I want to be a comedian, but I think it kind of shows this is what it's really like to be in the limelight all the time. The idea of living in a hotel and that being your everyday life because you don't have your own home to go to, that's not something that's just part of this book, by the way. That's actually still happening in this world even now. There are families in Ireland that are living in hotels that don't have their own homes to go to, that are in direct provision, which is the most awful thing you can put a human through. I think it's going to be really interesting reading back over this book as an adult, now living in a world where there are still so many people in these living situations, and there are so many people for whom this is their daily reality. I said that there would be a historical book on this list, and there is. It is The Lottie Project, and I actually reread this one last year as an audiobook. It was done so well. I was instantly catapulted back to when I was like 9 or 10 reading this book. In this one, we are following Charlotte, who is doing a history project in school based on the Victorians, where they have to kind of write life as a Victorian person and discuss their daily routines and what work was like and what childcare was like and that kind of a situation. So she goes to the school library and looks up what life for Victorians was like and finds a girl in one of the books that is her absolute spitting image. For her assignment then, Charlotte decides to make up a story about a girl called Lottie who is hired as a scullery maid for a family in the area, and she kind of puts aspects of her own life as it is right now into the life that Lottie could have lived 200 years previously. For example, her mother is dating somebody new who has a child from his previous relationship, and she kind of puts aspects of what has happened to them into this book as well. She puts aspects about like what school was like for these kids, what working life was like for them. It was such an interesting read, even back then when I wasn't really familiar with Victorians and what life was like at the time. I learned so much from that book alone. I don't think you can make a Jacqueline Wilson list without mentioning Tracy Baker. I think everybody around my age, when they were growing up, idolized Tracy Baker for one reason or another. I loved her mainly because she was just chaos personified. Tracy is such a standout character of Jacqueline Wilson. She's had so many books. She has TV programs. She has new books that have come out in the last 2 or 3 years or so. I have read them, and I'm going to have to reread them again actually, because I haven't read them in such a long time. I've forgotten what half of the book's about. I actually reread Tracy Baker, the first book, just last year, and it is narrated by everybody's favourite Danish person, Sandy Toksvig. She does Tracy Baker fantastically. I cannot fault the audiobook at all. In case you've been living under a rock, Tracy Baker is a 10-year-old girl and she's kind of a delinquent. She has been in the foster care system for quite a lot of her life and she's been through different foster families, but she's living at the moment in a foster home that she calls the dumping ground, which is kind of like a care home for quite a few children who are still in the foster system. One day a journalist comes to kind of do a story about the home and interview a couple of the kids that are living there. Tracy takes a shine to the journalist, but the journalist also takes a really good shine to Tracy. The second book in the series, The Dare Game, is about Tracy living with Cam as her foster child. I have said on this channel before that one thing I love reading about in books is twins, because I wanted to have a twin sister. And for that reason, Double Act was one of my absolute favourite Jacqueline Wilson books, because it gave me the opportunity to just live vicariously through that. This book is about Ruby and Garnet, twin sisters who are 10 years old and they live with their dad because their mother has passed away about 3 or 4 years previously. Like quite a lot of Jacqueline Wilson books, their dad starts dating somebody new, and that kind of turns their life around. They also apply to be in a television program. They apply to go to a private boarding school for secondary school. Throughout the book, you see Garnet, who starts the book as a very kind of a wallflower character, very shy and very kind of takes a step back and lets Ruby take the spotlight. But throughout the book, you really see a change in Garnet and you see her becoming a lot more confident and a lot more sure of herself throughout the book, especially towards the end of the book when they go their separate ways. I really loved seeing that done. The final books that I'm going to discuss in this video is The Illustrator Mum. I read this again as an audiobook a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think I expected it to impact me as much as it did. I had, of course, read this when I was younger, but I didn't have quite a lot of knowledge about mental illnesses and about bipolar disorder back when I was 9 or 10 or so when I first read it. So going into it now as an adult who knows a lot more about mental illnesses and who knows a lot more about bipolar disorder, seeing the signs of when things are going right and things are going wrong, seeing Marigold go from absolute mania to the other complete crashing side of bipolar disorder, it was such an eye-opener, and it is a book that I would recommend to absolutely everybody who is starting out with Jacqueline Wilson. Those are some of the Jacqueline Wilson books that have stayed with me throughout my life, and there are still so many more that I could have discussed and so many more that I have left to discover. What was your favourite Jacqueline Wilson book when you were growing up? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.